Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on February 25th, 2021. It is the Sunshine Coast Regional District regular board meeting, and we are very glad that you could join us today. I'm going to officially call us to order at 2:01 p.m. and acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is located on the traditional territories of the Seashelt and the Squamish First Nations, and we are very grateful to be joining you today from that area, those areas. We have an amended agenda in front of us today. Before we look to adopt that amended agenda, are there any other items to be added? I'll look to directors or staff. Okay, may I have a motion to adopt this amended agenda, please? So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. I'm going to ask for a motion to receive all minutes, reports. We don't have any communications, but if we can have a motion to receive all minutes and reports at this time, please. So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. First up, we have our regular board meeting minutes of February 11th, 2021, Annex A, pages 1 through 5 of our package. Before we adopt these minutes, are there any errors or omissions or additions or changes to be done? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt the minutes of February 11th, 2021, please. So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business? Nope. Okay, moving on. We will go up first we don't have any presentations or delegations today, but our first series of reports is the Special Corporate and Administrative Services Committee Round 1 budget recommendations numbers 1 through 74 of February 1st, 2nd, and 5th, 2021. This is Annex B, pages 6 through 33 of our package. Directors, before we adopt these recommendations, can you let me know if you'd like to pull out any of the out of the block to debate separately? Director Seekers?
Item 41.
Number 41. Okay, Director Beamish? Director Beamish, what would you like to pull out? You're on mute.
Number 33.
Number 33. Okay. Director Ties?
I'd like to pull out number 20, please.
Number 20. Okay.
And I think we still have number 39 remaining as well.
And number 39.
Yep.
I'm just going to double check the email. 20, 33, 39, and 41 are the numbers that I have pulled out of the block. Staff or directors, are there any other ones that you would like pulled out of the block before we adopt the remainder of the block? So we've pulled out 20, 40, or pardon me, in numerical order, 20, 33, 39, and 41. Going back to my bingo caller days there, under the N. Director Lee.
Sorry, I was a little bit late. I'd like to pull out number 19 to discuss, please.
Number 19. Okay. All right, so I have 5 recommendations altogether that are being pulled out of the block. Okay, so 19, 20, 33, 39, and 41. Going once. Going twice. Director Lee, you have a line there. Congratulations, bingo. No, just kidding. Sorry, I digressed. Okay, so if I may have a motion to adopt the remaining recommendations from the CAS meetings pre-budget of February 1st, 2nd, and 5th. I see a mover from Director McMahon, a seconder from Director Seegers. Any further discussion? Other than it was a very full 3 days, and thank you to everybody's dedication and making sure we got through, and to Director Seegers for sharing us through those 3 very, very big days. And we have been more coming up yet, but I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so up first, we will go to recommendation number 19. Just bear with me one moment. Director Lee, do you have a page that is on?
Page 13, Chair.
Thank you very much, Director Toth. Okay, Director Lee, would you like to tell us?
Yeah,
yes.
Quite a late item, but I just discovered that the washrooms in Madeira were not going to be funded by the government, Ministry of Housing. And with that, the Visitor Information Center washrooms are now quite underfunded because they never did get a subsidy through the end of 2020 or in fact into 2021. I think we need to up that money from by $7,000, so from 8 to 15.
Okay. Okay, so yes, Director Seegers?
Just a question. Are you talking about the washrooms or the booths? The washrooms were at 6. The booths were at 8.
Oh, sorry, wrong one. I was talking about the Visitor Information Center washrooms.
Okay, CFO, please, over to you.
Yeah, one of the suggestions I have is, and this relates to some of the other ones that are kind of getting pulled, is that there's new information that has occurred from round 1 to round 2. My suggestion versus amending amounts, because we don't have any background to that effect other than verbally, which is fine, but it would be good for the public record to maybe have something in paper. So what my suggestion would be is that we could refer the block to round 2 for further information on the washroom funding. That way we could get some information. The only thing is I know tomorrow the agenda is supposed to go out, so I don't know if the chamber could get that to us, but we could always put it as to follow. But we could just take that block and refer it to round 2, pending more information on the washroom.
Yes, I told them I'd probably need a letter, so I could get that tonight.
Perfect. Yeah. So then that would be the suggestion. Instead of amending it, is that we alter that the be approved and incorporated, and amend it to the fact that it be forwarded to the round 2 budget deliberations pending more information on the washroom facility.
Thank you very much, CFO Perot. And Director Lee, I'm imagining that you are making that as a motion.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Seconded by Director McMahon. Our recording secretary, do you have that information there in front of you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion on this? CFO Perot, I see your hand's still up, but I'm just wanted to make sure you didn't want to flag anything else. But okay, so what we're doing is we are going to forward this to round 2 budget pending additional information. It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, next up, I have item number 20, recommendation number 20. I'm going to go to the director from Roberts Creek to speak to this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's been brought to my attention that the allocated funding for the Gibson's Library is at the same level as it was last year, at least coming from Roberts Creek. And I'd like to amend that to reflect the increase that was requested for this year. So my change is that the apportionment from the Roberts Creek Library Service 646 to the Gibsons and District Public Library Service 640 in support of the 2021 budget submission be forwarded to the round 2 budget deliberations.
Okay, so that's been moved by Director Ties. May I have a seconder? Seconded Director Seegers. Is any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. So next up, I have item number 30 or recommendation number 33, and that is on, one moment please, it is on page 17 of your agenda package, the Gibsons and District Fire Protection budget proposals. I am assuming Director Beamish, this one is over to you.
Chair, thank you. It's the budget proposal number 1 on the sanitation, the 12,000 funded through taxation. This is something that I believe should be funded through the COVID-19 restart funds, and the town of Gibson is prepared to pay its share to the regional district as opposed to have taxation to our residents for that purpose. So I will get a resolution for round 2 from council authorizing the expenditure of additional $6,000 because we're at 49-point-something%. So $6,000 of our restart funds will be transferred to the regional district to offset this cost because I just every penny counts. You know, you've heard me talk about cost of living increases that are out of whack that add to base for next year, and there'll be cost of living on the cost of living base we put this year. I think it's just crazy. That being said, this is a sanitization thing as a result of COVID, and I think it should be paid for by COVID. So we'll have a resolution for you to that effect.
Okay, so I'm going to look to my CFO and corporate officer because I'm assuming this would be best to, once again, the same motion to forward to round 2 budget pending additional information. If that works, okay. And so Director Beamish, we will, you're making a motion then to forward to round 2 pending additional information.
Please, thank you. I have verbal, by the way, from my counsel already, so that I should be able to get a resolution.
Okay, all right. And I see that seconded by Director McMahon. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on, we have recommendation number 39 on the bottom of page 18. And this is the Egmont and District Fire Protection round 1 budget proposals. I will go to our CFO, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It came to our attention as part of reviewing the minutes that there was additional information that for proration for 2021 and maybe some supplemental overhead costs. So staff are requesting that this particular budget proposal be the budget proposal number 1, the 40,000 for the Egmont chief, be forwarded to the round 2 budget deliberations pending additional financial information.
Okay. Director Lee, I see you making that motion. And do I have a seconder for that? Seconded, Director McMahon. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, up next we have recommendation number 41, which is on page 19. And this is Port's 2021 round 2 budget proposals. Does staff want to speak to this? Director Seegers, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I request this be pulled. And it's just the end further that. I think it just needs to be a little clearer in there. When I read this initially, it says, you know, that it be abandoned for collaboration. If we go back to the budget documents, it's that it be abandoned and for staff to collaborate with the Sunshine Coast Regional Economic Development, so that it's clear that this thing isn't just gone away, it's kind of shifted direction.
Okay.
Just a little
So-
clearer, that's all.
Okay, so you'd like to make that recommendation with that amendment is what I'm
Yes,
hearing.
please. Thank you.
Okay, and do I have a seconder for that? Seconded, Director McMahon. Any further discussion on this item? I'll look to staff and see if there's a thumbs up that clarifies it a little bit more. Is that good? That's good for the corporate officer as well? Okay, perfect. Okay. So seeing no further discussion, I'm going to call the question on that recommendation. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. All right. Okay, so that took us through block one. So just bear with me. I have to get back to the other agenda here. Okay, so next up, so that took care of all of the special corporate and administrative service committee round one budget recommendations. Next up, we have Annex C, pages 34 through 38 of our package. And this is the infrastructure services committee recommendations, numbers 1 through 3, 5 to 7, and 10 to 15 of February 11th, 2021. Directors, before we adopt these recommendations as a block, would you like to pull any of the recommendations to further debate separately? I'll look to staff to see if there's anything that needs to be pulled. Nope. Okay, good. All right. So I'll look for a motion to adopt these recommendations, please. So move Director Seegers, seconded Director Toth. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Next up, Annex D, pages 39 to 42 of our package. And these are the Planning and Community Development Committee recommendations numbers 1 through 12 of February 18th, 2021. Directors, would you like to pull any of these recommendations for further debate before we adopt them as a block? Staff, are there any that need to be pulled for further information or anything? Okay, seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adopt these recommendations of the PCD committee of February 18th. So move Director Ties, seconded Director McMahon. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. Next up, we have 5A, which is the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations numbers 3 to 6 of earlier today. And this is pages 42A to B of our package, of our amended agenda package. Directors, would you like to further debate any of these items before we adopt them as a block? Anything from staff? Okay, may I have a motion to adopt these recommendations, please? So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. Next up, number 6 on our agenda, Annex E, pages 43 to 44 of our package. And this is for placement of notice on title with our chief building official. Mr. Whittleton is with us. So I don't know if GM Hall wishes to introduce this or, okay, over to GM Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Under Section 57 of the Community Charter, from time to time when SCRD building officials become aware of a contravention of the Building Act or our building bylaw, they may bring forward a recommendation for notice on title to protect the regional district and future owners of property. And staff report with 2 properties recommended for notice is in front of the board today. And we have our chief building official here as a technical resource if there are questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, GM Hall. I will note that one of the property owners is in the gallery as well. So if they would like to speak to it, they are more than welcome to raise their hand and we will bring them forward. Before we bring, okay, I see your hand up there, Mr. Wing. So I am just going to allow you to talk. And if you could unmute yourself and
Hi there.
yeah, hi. So if you can just tell us which property it is with and introduce any, or we can ask you questions. So the floor is yours, Mr. Wing.
Sure. So my name is Courtney Wing, and I am the property owner at 216 Camp Road. And I am here to ask for an extension. I feel the information I got was a little bit slippery and from the different resources I got, which led me to be confused. But in recent emails, I've gotten a clear picture from the building inspector, Alan, and I'd like to have an extension prior to getting a notice on title so I can either apply for a permit or make the changes necessary to comply with the building code.
Okay. And Mr. Wing, how long of an extension would you like to request?
I really don't know with the building permit process, how long it takes or looks like. And I still feel like I need to get some information. So, and to make adjustments, I don't even know what's really 6 months, maybe. I'm not sure what it even takes to get building permit, or yeah, I don't know what's a reasonable amount of time.
Okay. So before I go to questions from directors, I'll put this maybe over to staff, because I know in the past the board has offered a 30-day or 4-week, I guess, an extension to a notice on title. So what would be, I mean, I do understand, because it is at the board level, that it is, it's up to the discretion of the board how we wish to move forward on this. But I think being that this is not something that we deal with very often at this table, we'd certainly like to have some information from staff on what the possibilities can be.
Sure. Can I ask one more question? How long does it usually take for an application for a permit, to get a permit?
Okay. So Mr. Wing, I'm going to put Mr. Whittleton on, and he can certainly help with answering those questions, not just for your information, but for the board's information as well. Thank you, Mr. Whittleton. Over to you.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Typically, it takes between 3 and 6 weeks to get a building permit if all of the required documentation is in place. This situation is a little unique, and it's hard to say how much time the owner would need to bring the documentation in for the permit to be issued. I would think that 60 days should be quite reasonable. One of the other choices, or two of the other choices, didn't involve permits. One was to remove the building itself. One was to make it slightly smaller so it didn't need a permit, or to apply for a permit. So I would think that 60 days should be a reasonable amount of time.
Okay. So if the board wished to entertain an extension of 60 days and then bringing this back in, let's see, we're the end of February. So either the first meeting in May even would be certainly within that 60-day, or just outside that 60-day period. That would give the owner plenty of time. Just as a we have nothing formulated right now, so this is just some wonderment, I guess. I know how much the CAO loves to hear it when I say that, but just putting it out there. So that's what I'm going to go over to Director McMahon. I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to just move a 60-day extension.
Okay. For the, I'm going to look, the corporate officer unmuted herself. So I think it's best, because I know we did this, when we went through this last time, when we offered an extension, we had an actual date that it came back onto the board meeting. So I think that's probably best, just to bookend this process so it's very clear for everyone, because this, just for legislatively wise.
Well, thank you, Chair. So, well, we could go with the 60 days, or you could actually suggest a date. The question I had was, there's two ways to go about it. So when the timeline is up, we can either bring the notice back to the board for a decision, or we can automatically apply the notice on title if the property has not come into compliance by that date. So we would prefer that that be specified in the resolution as well, whether we bring it back to the board or we register it after that period.
Okay. Director McMahon, did you have a suggestion on that, or do you want me to continue through the speakers list? Continue through. Mr. Whittleton, before I go to Director Seegers, did you have anything to add at this point from a process-wise?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I have anything to add. We certainly will try to work with this owner as well as any other owner when it comes to issues involving the permits. So I have nothing else to add to that. Okay.
Director Seegers, over to you.
Thank you. Given there are a number of options that the applicant, or the building owner could choose, 60 days may or may not be sufficient. So I would suggest that 60 days, fine, let's defer it for 60 days, but have it come back to the board at that point. And then we can have an update as to, where they are in that process. It might be that it's complete, but it may be that at that point, depending on the choice they've made, they may need some additional time. But that gives us the opportunity to be able to work with them on that.
Okay. Thank you, Director Seegers. Director McMahon.
What she said.
Okay, so Director McMahon, do you want it to word 60 days to that the applicant have 60 days, or do we want to have it come back to a specific board meeting after that 60-day period?
Or we could bring it back to a board meeting. I'd need a calendar. Does anybody have a calendar handy?
I personally, for my frame of mind, I would prefer an actual date rather than after 60 days, just so we know. Director Toth, do you have a calendar right in front of you?
May 13th.
May 13th. So we have a board meeting on May 13th. Is that correct, Corporate Officer?
Yes, that's
yes.
correct.
Okay. So, so then the motion would say that this would come back. The notice on title would come back. Or this would come back to board if notice.
It would just come back to board on May 13th.
May 13th, if the applicant has not satisfied the requirements. Does that make, that's the wording we want? If so, if the applicant doesn't satisfy the requirements by May 3rd, or this will come back to the May 13th board meeting. That works.
Chair Pratt's motion.
Okay, that's clear. And Jennifer will clean up my language. Okay. And do I have a seconder for that? I see that seconded. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I will call the Mr. Wing, I'm just going to ask if you're clear on what needs to be done.
Yes, I am clear, and thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I will follow up with Alan.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I am going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Wing, for joining us today. We are just going to move you. Going to remove you. Perfect. Okay. So that deals with 216 Camp Road. So we still have the other one, 5671 Rutherford Road, Electoral Area B. Mr. Whittleton, do you anything to say on this one, or we'll just look for the motion that the corporate officer be authorized to file a notice on title?
I have no specific statements on this unless you have any questions for me.
No. Director McMahon.
I would like to make that motion.
Okay, that the corporate officer be authorized to file a notice on title?
Right.
Okay, so I see that moved by Director McMahon. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I have it seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you so much, Mr. Whittleton, for joining us today. And we really appreciate seeing you because we never get a chance to see you anymore. So excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so with that, next thing we have is the Chief Administrative Officer's Report of February 25th, 2021, Annex F, pages 45 to 46 of our package. I will over to the CAO.
Thank you, Chair. Nothing further to add to the report, but happy to take any questions.
All right. Directors, any questions for the CAO? Wow, it's all these breakfast meetings, CAO. We know what you're doing because we're usually with you. Okay. That's so no questions for the CAO. Excellent. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the report. Moving on, we have no communications. We do have a motion. So the motion is that Alan Comfort be appointed to the Roberts Creek Area D Advisory Planning Commission for the remainder of the 2-year term, and that the appointment of Dana Gregory to the Roberts Creek Area D Advisory Planning Commission be rescinded in accordance with Section 7 VIII of Sunshine Coast Regional District Advisory Planning Commission's Bylaws 453, 1988, whereby a member of an APC absent for 3 or more consecutive regularly scheduled meetings will be deemed to have resigned their position unless the absence is because of illness or injury, as with the leave of the board. So, Director Ties, I see you making that motion. Do you wish to speak with it?
No,
sorry, let me ask for a seconder first before you speak to it. I see it seconded. Sorry, Director Ties, over to you.
Yeah, I would like to thank Dana for many years of great service. He just has kind of dropped off the radar lately, but he's been a very valuable contributor, and I hope that his thank you letter might actually prompt him to get back in touch with us and reapply. But yeah, so yeah, I'm happy to move those.
Excellent. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Up next, we have a bylaw, and it is on Annex G, pages 47 to 49 of our package. And this is for adoption. So I'm going to ask for a motion for adoption of the Sunshine Coast Regional District Sanitary Landfill Site Amendment Bylaw number 405.23 2021. So moved, Director Seegers. Seconded, Director McMahon. Are there any comments or questions or debate on this before we move it or before we adopt? Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I've supported this in previous readings. I've heard some significant feedback about the cost of dropping off propane tanks. I'll be voting against it, but I don't necessarily expect that to change the outcome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Director Toth. So with that, it's been moved and seconded. This is voting all directors. It is a weighted vote as listed there in the agenda package. So I will call the question. All those in favor of adoption? Thank you. Those opposed? Director Toth? And you would like that recorded, I'm assuming? Yes. Okay. The motion passes. Thank you. So that takes us down to our director's report. What we are going to do today is I'm going to look for volunteers. Volunteers or voluntold? Who'd like to go? Director Ties, you're up.
All right, I'll keep it short and sweet. We had a good MODI meeting with the rural directors, and I'd like to thank Colin and Michael for coming and explaining us the world of MODI. I think it gave us some perspective, and I also followed up with him today about Lowell Road. I'm looking forward to the MOU hopefully being in place sometime in the near future, and then we can maybe move forward on some of our active transportation goals. I also attended a workshop on territorial acknowledgement with Director McMahon on Wednesday, I think. Was it yesterday? Anyway, sometime earlier this week. And I had my first APC meeting since June. And my numbers are much diminished, unfortunately. So I'm still looking for some candidates. If you know somebody in Roberts Creek who might be a good member for an APC, please do reach out to them and see if they can contribute. We also had an OCPC meeting, and the topic of discussion for both the APC and the OCPC was a cannabis shop of application in the heart of the creek, and neither committee had any objections, although they did feel like the greater community should be consulted with some increased outreach. I did post it on Facebook, and I'm talking to you about it now, but that is it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Ties. Next up, I have Director Seegers and then Director Beamish.
Thank you. I'm just going to mention a few of the many things I've done over the last couple of weeks. One is the Seashelt Housing Advisory Committee. So the Gibson's agenda actually recently received Gibson's Council received the implementation plan for the housing needs assessment. And that was reviewed then by the Seashelt Housing Advisory Committee. And out of that, an emergency housing meeting has been called for March 1st. It has been selected members and selected organizations in the community who've been invited. The governments have been invited, so you directors are all invited, and we've invited a planner from the regional district. The mandate of this is to have immediate action. So we indicated to those groups that were invited that if they were not in a position currently to take immediate action on housing, that they not come to the meeting. So we've actually had a couple of groups say, we're not in that position at this point. We're not going to come. So that's great. What we're looking at is bringing all of these various groups in the community together to see what kinds of immediate actions we can take to address the housing crisis on the Sunshine Coast. So the meeting is Monday night at 7 p.m. And if you check your emails, you should have an invitation. I attended the seniors planning table meeting. I believe Director McMahon was there as well. If I remember, yes. No, okay. Somebody was there from the regional district. I don't remember who it was. It's a phenomenal meeting. They bring together over 40 groups from the Sunshine Coast who deal with seniors issues. And one of the big ones they're dealing with right now is isolation. As you can imagine, isolation was an issue before. Now with COVID, it's even more of an issue. And so they're looking at how they can address that. They're also involved with the regional district's transportation committee focus around some of the Handy Dart, for example. And they've been one of 12 communities, 12 groups from communities in BC invited to a provincial transportation focus group. So they're involved with that. And one of the things, they reached out just in the last couple of days and said, can I put them in touch with Vancouver Coastal Health? Because they want to have a hand in ensuring that those over 80 and even those over 65 who need rides to get their vaccines have that ability. So we're connecting people. It's awesome. Chair Pratt, Mayor Beamish and I were in a teleconference this week with Minister Osborne, Municipal Affairs, and Minister Malcolmson, Mental Health and Addictions. And one of the things that we put forward was that on the Sunshine Coast, we would like to have a detox and treatment facility. and we want them to advise us on what the steps are. So it was actually mentioned at the Rotary yesterday when I spoke with them, and they asked who's taking on lead, and they kept asking me, so I said me. So now you know I'm taking on the lead. Ministry of Transport came to the District of Sechelt to our committee of the whole meeting yesterday. It was a great conversation. Our staff made some good connections. We have a list of projects, some of the ongoing maintenance kinds of things, you know, the operational sort of things. So they're going to be following up on those. It was great to see. One of the things that came out of that is that they are in the process of putting together the terms of reference to do a bypass study for the Sunshine Coast. They haven't determined the scope, like what the length of it is, when it's going to take place, but they're in the process of doing that. And we requested they reach out to the various governments for input on what that scope looks like. And then I mentioned yesterday I had the pleasure to speak, give a bit of a talk at the Rotary in Sechelt, and that was through the efforts of our chair. And so I did a little talk on a week in the life, and I think it went well. Yeah, I think it was good. It was actually an opportunity. I always appreciate the opportunities to be able to just stop and look back as well, because we don't in our roles, we're going full out forward, and having an opportunity like this allows us, like I say, to stop, look back, and reflect a bit. So it was. I want to thank Chair Pratt for that opportunity, and to the Rotary. And that's it. Thank you.
And it was very well received, Director Seegers. They were flabbergasted at how much you do in a week. So, so I'm going to go to Director Beamish and then Director McMahon.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'll just share a couple of things. I enjoyed a week off last week. Spent a lot of time in my backyard fighting with blackberries and just cleaning up the property. And that was very therapeutic at the same time. So that I recommend anybody can get the time to take off. I enjoyed the meeting with Minister Osborne and Minister Malcolmson this week, and discussion of some of the issues. On the part of our community, I raised the issues of the positive thing of the community action team that works on the coast here and the interrelation we have with them. The whole concern about police mental health interface and the cost of that in terms of service time lost to the RCMP and with respect to other criminal justice activities. The new supportive housing project in Gibsons, which I'll get back to in a minute, and heightened community concern around that facility as it comes into play. And then the need for like Mayor Seegers has been pushing for a resident facility on the Sunshine Coast for treatment of addictions and other problems. So that these are issues that we raised, and there's a lot of around the province, there's a lot, rather around the Lower Mainland, because this is primarily a Lower Mainland conversation. A lot of sharing of the same concerns. It's very interesting to see that everybody appreciates what is being done. Everybody still has pressures for more, and that's really a challenge. I have reached out to the province to ask if there's an opportunity to make a presentation to the Police Act Review Committee. I do believe it's worth talking to them, both on policing relative to mental health issues, as well as for our community about the getting involved likely in policing in 2022 as a responsibility. So that was good and worthwhile conversation. In addition to that, myself and Director McMahon and David Kroll, Councillor Kroll, and member of the fire department, Greg Suen, we had a tour of the supportive housing facility this week. Very interested to see it before it gets occupied. They're still struggling with their occupation. Hopefully it'll come quickly. Some issues still to be completed. Very encouraged to see the support we received from the community in terms of welcome packages. We didn't know when we started out talking about welcome packages. I talked to the MLA and the MP's office and said, look, I'd like to do a letter of welcome to these new residents. We reached out to the library, who added a letter of welcome, to the public market and the Nicholas Sontag Center, who added a letter as well as gave free passes, to the art gallery, who offered free memberships for a year to residents. That has extended. The school district has dropped off packages of information to be added to the welcome. Salvation Army added information about the food bank and the services they provide. The IGA provided a shopping bag full of goodies for them, and the IGA and the Super Value provided gift cards for them. So it was just kind of snowballs. So all of this is kind of waiting people as they arrive, just to say welcome to our community, and we hope that you'll be part of our community, and we look forward to seeing you. And if you have any challenges, give us a call. We're interested in working with you. So that hopefully they were actually planning on moving tenants into there yesterday. That didn't happen, obviously. So hopefully very quickly. They're that soon in terms of their preparation. I believe it was issues with the fire department this time, so we'll figure it out. But yeah, we're busy. It's back to work. Council meetings and board meetings and special meetings and other meetings, and it just never ends. I'm sure that my week is maybe not as busy as Mayor Seegers, but it's busy. And it's always nice to just sit at home and have no meetings other than a laptop beside you and an agenda to read. So, boy. Okay, thank you. That's me.
Thank you, Director Beamish. Up next is Director McMahon, and I'm looking for who would like to be next after that. So after Director Mann, I have Director Hiltz and then Director Toth.
Okay, it's actually interesting what Mayor Seegers said about reflecting. That's one of the things about doing a newsletter that I find it forces me to sit down and ask myself what I did in the last month. And by the time you're at a month, you can barely remember what happened 3 weeks ago. It's amazing. February 12th was Go by Bike Day. So of course it was cold. I think it was the coldest day this year. My fingers were absolutely frozen, even with the gloves, but what the heck. February 16th, I sat in on the Gibson's council meeting for a while to listen to the presentation by Coastal Rides, which is the local ride-hailing service. They are up and running. They're COVID challenged like everybody else, but it was nice to hear from them. February 17th, I attended OBINA, Ocean Beach Esplanade Neighborhood Association, to listen to some of their concerns. February 19th, Gibson's Chamber. The three chambers are jointly sponsoring Business Excellence Awards this year. I think they were canceled last year due to COVID, but they're back on. And BC Ferries has given the green light for the travel ambassadors to go back on the ferries. So they're trying to work that one out. February 22nd, I attended, I go to quite a few climate caucus meetings, but this one was an interesting presentation on the right to repair. And that kind of legislation is really important from senior government. France has just instituted a repairability index for all new appliances, which is really interesting. I attended the Area B budget presentation, very interesting. Next day, I listened in on the mayors and chairs call. I toured the supportive housing facility. I went to the Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting, and there will be recommendations forthcoming from them. And the Farmers Institute AGM, which was quite interesting. I do welcome a discussion about the roles of our advisory committees, because I think all of them, to one degree or another, are struggling with the system that we have set up right now. Oh, yesterday, indeed, it was the Territorial Acknowledgement Workshop, and I listened in to the Seashelt meeting with Modi. Fascinated to hear this about the bypass study. That kind of came out of left field. So I actually would suggest that we all write to Modi, to Elena Farmer, and express our willingness and enthusiasm to be engaged on this subject. And I also attended a webinar yesterday from West Coast Environmental Law on issues around sea level rise. They have a really interesting visual chart that shows all of the layers of government involved in marine issues. It's fairly horrendous. But they mentioned that the current BC government has a mandate to develop a coastal strategy, and we certainly need that. We need provincial leadership on this issue because local governments, we can't deal with it one jurisdiction at a time. A few years ago, Roberts Creek tried to bring in a green shores policy and it got shot down. But, you know, it's difficult. And literally you can't do this one little piece at a time. You have to have an overall strategy and move forward. So anyway, it's been interesting.
Thank you, Director McMahon. Up next, Director Hiltz, then Toth, and then Lee and Director Paul.
Thanks, Chair. I'll continue on the APC, the Advisory Planning Commission theme. There was an Area F meeting on Tuesday, so we welcomed a couple new members, and we presented them with the former orientation package. So people are looking forward to the new orientation package that's going to be coming out to help with training. So we had one outgoing member, John Rogers, and we thanked him for his service. And we had two new members, Alicia LaFell and Al Hyland, who are both kind of Langdale residents. And the main topic was a TELUS tower in the Twin Creeks area. It might be the tallest structure on the Sunshine Coast eventually, 72 meters. Height of land up on the top of a hill in an industrial area, which will, I didn't know that there is a significant gap along the Port Mellon Highway for cell phone coverage. Not being a driver and along there or a cell phone user, it's been a long outstanding area, and TELUS is coming through with that. So the committee was highly supportive of it, and it'll also help with the marine traffic in the Thormanburg Channel area and up to it's called Worldcom Island, I believe. And there is an eagerness, right, for in-person meetings. You know, that continues to be something that they talk about. As Director McMahon mentioned, the Agriculture Advisory was on Tuesday, and the discussion was about the food charter and non-soil-based cannabis production on agricultural lands. I believe they're called dark sites, is what the term of art is called. The West Howe Sound Community Association executive continues in a rebuilding web presence and Facebook page. And yeah, the Area B budget information session was really interesting and well done. And I think for me, a couple of the main questions was, how does the SERD work? Which CAO McKinley explained the one employee model, which I think was really useful for people to understand that. And the question about revenue sources. Where do we get our money from? Can't we just get more money other than property taxes? So that was interesting to hear that people are wondering, why can't we just get money from someplace else? Which is one of the restrictions of local government financing. I think that's enough. So yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Director Hiltz. My apologies. My dog was very enthusiastic about your report. So moving on over to Director Toth, please.
Thank you, Chair, or at least enthusiastic about us looking for money elsewhere other than just property taxes. Let's see. Council's moved forward with a letter of award for construction at the airport. So that's resurfacing and the small extension. We're expecting substantial completion by July 31st and the project to be totally complete by the end of the year. We had some emergency work come forward to replace failing maintenance holes, or as they used to be called, manholes on Trail Avenue. These are items that deteriorated rapidly over the last 2 years to the point where they're basically dirt with a lid. And I've got a link to the video that I'm happy to share with any of the directors that want to see. Our director of engineering and operations is really keen to work with his counterparts at the SCRD and Town of Gibson's and SIGD. So there may be opportunity to collaborate more on engineering work and rehabilitation work and what have you going forward. Yeah, I also listened into the Area B budget presentation. Chair and staff did a great job. Some good questions, some interesting questions. And yeah, I look forward to tuning into the rest of them if I can. So that's really all I have to report.
Thank you, Director Toth. Up next, Director Lee, and then finishing up with Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take to heart that I just report on stuff that I should be bringing back to the board. So we had I attended the seniors planning table, and I was very impressed with how well run the meeting was and the quality of the verbal reports. It's really well done. And the things that caught my attention was the Green Sleeve program, where you actually you provide information for the seniors in their house on things like emergency numbers for them, and if they're incapable, who should look after their affairs, and if they have a do not resuscitate. It's very interesting. I didn't know they did that. And I think Director Seegers can probably help me with this one, because they suggested that we need a social planning committee like they have in the city, but they seem to be suggesting we should be doing that. And I don't exactly remember what that was, or my notes don't say.
Mm-hmm. That actually originated, I believe, with the Sunshine Coast Regional Economic Development Organization. And they're realizing that as governments, we are taking on a lot of the social issues, but we don't really have the staffing to do that. And so the community organizations are fulfilling, they're filling that role, but are looking for some kind of staff position at some point to coordinate all of that.
Okay, that's what they were up to. It was interesting at the time, but my notes weren't complete. The other thing is I agree with Director McMahon on the amount of time it takes to write an article. It's just amazing how much it takes to simply pull everything together for a single subject. Hours and hours of research, and then you write 3 lines. Anyways, I guess that's nothing seems to be simple for us, was my observation from that. We deal with some pretty complex subjects. I attended the PMAC meeting, and there was a really great presentation from Cincy and Chris, who live in Paul River. And they're really, their focus is recycling construction material, either renovations or new houses. And boy, they had lots of good suggestions. I hope that they come and give presentation to the board. I won't try and cover what they did talk to, but I'll tell you, if we get a chance, I think we need to bring them in, because it's a whole new way of looking at recycling and reusing of a very large component of a problem. And the last thing is, I had an APC last night, and I do admit that Area A has some very complicated issues, and it's mostly around the lakes. There's old houses built haphazardly, and now the kids are inheriting them, or they're getting ready to be handed down, and they all want to build new ones and make them nice. And people are all wanting to live around the lakes right now for some reason. But lots of confusion around setbacks. We really do need an APC orientation meeting. I mean, and so does the directors, or at least this director does, because I don't, they're asking me about setbacks, and I don't know, and I used to be a builder. But the lakes are a unique situation. They're not nowhere near a normal situation. And they struggle with what they should recommend or just comment on. They don't know the boundaries, the fences. And the final comment was that they would really like to have staff support like Wasac does. because a couple of them are on the WASAC, and they get a lot of staff support on that advisory group. And they said that they just plain made the comment, we'd really like to have staff support like WASAC does. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means we need to change to daytime meetings so that it doesn't cost our staff a fortune to attend, or that they could be available to attend. But that's something I think we need to talk about in the future. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee. Over to Director Paul, please.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I missed the meeting the week prior. We've been knee deep in budget, more budget, capital budget, back to the main budget, trying to figure out who's going to rob Peter and who's going to beat up Paul. But we did our presentation piece last night. We got it all resolved yesterday morning and presented it yesterday afternoon. So we got it all handed off, and it's that part of it is done. The SIGD budget is complete, and that's now going out to the advisory committee to be passed on. One of the interesting pieces we had this week is part of our foundation agreement, port agreements. One of the conditions of that was honored by the province, and they've transferred us the lands 7613 to the nation, and that is now, according to the legal people, that is now ours. It's going to take a little while for the OIC to come through, but for all intents and purposes, that is now our headache. So we look forward to seeing what we can do with that. Another part of our foundation agreement portion was that as part of the Land Act resurrection that they're doing to that the province is engaged in, they've invited our nation, Tla'amin, Kwahus, Hamalko, who are all part of the Lower Coast TFL, to participate in what they call a forest landscape planning exercise, and it works on a watershed by watershed basis for the whole Lower Coast TFL. So I've been rather wise in this one. I've assigned that one to one of my council members to attend. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process, and it'll be happening long past this term of office as well. And I'm fairly confident I won't be here for the next term. So I look forward to that part of that conversation. Other than that, it's life is good. We're to your part on drug and alcohol. We got an interesting comment come back to us from FNHA, wondering why we didn't apply for the drug and alcohol facility piece, and we didn't do that portion. Well, according to everything that we thought, we were waiting for them to say they're ready to go. But now I've got people scrambling very crazily to try and fit that particular bill. So hoping that we can get something going on that front, and I look forward to successful reporting something back in the not too distant future. I think that's about it for the time being. I'm looking forward to going home and collapsing on the couch and looking up at the ceiling and drinking lots of tea and wondering why I was so crazy as to do this in my retirement years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Paul. I appreciate that. I'm going to just keep my director's report very brief and just report on one item, and that was regarding the budget information session on Monday night. And I think it went really well, I feel, and it was great to have the support of our communications team, our finance team, and the CAO, and along with all the moral support of the directors in the audience. So thank you all for attending to watch me take the first one out. It was really good, and I'm actually really happy that we as directors are being the ones that are at the front face of this, because budgets are very very important to all of our residents, and they can get very political. So I think we need, as elected people, we need to be owning these decisions that we're making and presenting to our residents about them, and being able to answer questions and being able to talk about them. So I've really appreciated that. I'm looking forward to attending in the audience tomorrow and then next week for the District of Sechelt and Town of Gibsons, and looking forward to seeing your councils at that time. And then from there, I had a note from Director Seekers that you had something else that you wanted to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to give the directors and staff a heads up. Back before COVID hit, we had started the Game of Floods in the District of Sechelt, which is the climate adaptation workshop format. And then that had to be put by the wayside. 2 new dates have come forward. They're going to be 2 sessions, March 18th and March 25th. And I believe those are in the evening. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Watch for an invitation once they finalize stuff.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you very much, Director Seegers. So with that, that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. We do have an in-camera section, and I'll read that, and then we'll find out if we had any questions come in from the audience, as I see our attendee has left. But to go in camera today, we are going to ask that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with Section 91C, G, and M of the Community Charter. If I can have that as a motion and a seconder, thank you both. And all those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. Over to IT, were there any questions that came in? No questions. Okay, so we are going to move in camera, so I'll let IT do that. I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to just secure their spaces. And then immediately following this, we do have an additional meeting that's just been pushed back slightly that we'll be going into as soon as we're done with in camera, correct, CAO? Thumbs up on that? Okay, so if everyone could just, let's say 5 minutes for just 5 minutes for a quick break, secure your space, and we'll see you back here at 3:13, please. And good afternoon. If you're still with us, you're here just in time for us to adjourn our regular board meeting of Thursday, February 25th, 2021. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you all. And for anybody that's curious, it's 10 months until Christmas.
Remco,
Start
before you
shopping now.
leave, Remco, before you leave, could I ask you a question?